choice?
Yeah, most of it.
Most of it.
Haley, couldn't you ask yourself or what?
Apparently not.
A little afraid to ask. That's funny. Now there's matching, there's multiple choice, and then there's too short answer. Okay. Oh my gosh. Oh. Oh, dear Lord. Dear Lord.
Everyone's talking about this Cobra Kai now.
Cobra Kai is awesome.
You got everyone doing.
Cobra Kai never dies. What? You laughing at me?
No, the rat problem commercial.
The rat
You
problem?
ever see that commercial?
No.
The guy commercial?
I'll have to check it out then.
Oh my god, you gotta watch it.
All right. Okay. Got to repeat this here. So Friday, tomorrow, Haley and Angel current events. Okay, we have a quiz tomorrow. So those of you at home, please email me your vocab terms. No later than Friday. If you email me Saturday, Sunday, next week, forget about it. Forget about it. Right, Chris? Yeah. Okay. And then that's pretty much it. That's pretty much it. So the test is going to be a Google form. I'll put it up on Google Classroom for you to do. Shouldn't take you too long. It's going to be matching, multiple choice, and too short answer. Won't take you too long. Okay, moving on. Describe how child labor changed in America during the Progressive Era. Okay, took a long period of time, but eventually got to it, right? Colin's like, I still work at Krautzer's, throwing around paint cans, doing all this other stuff.
Yeah.
So maybe it didn't end in my life. Yeah,
Especially the night shift.
the night shift.
Till 7.
John Party working on the night shift.
Yeah.
Good song.
Classic.
I literally just came out a couple years last year. All right, so bell ringers too. So those of you at home, please email me those. Again, no later than Friday. Email them Saturday. This weekend here, next week, forget about it. Right, Chris? Forget about it. Why is that a thing, though? They always put their hand, Italians, right? Forget about it.
Kind of like, I don't know, like,
Huh?
you
What?
The fawns. Right?
Oh, the fawns, yeah. I don't know.
it's like you do it big.
Oh, okay. I got you.
Depends. You don't have to be mad about it.
Yeah. My one buddy does that a lot, and he also points to my chest. For some reason, he puts his finger at my chest. He's like, listen, dude. I'm like, why? Why are you doing that? Why are you poking me in the chest when you're talking to me? I think it's funny. So give you some time to work on this. You can include a little bit of what we talked about yesterday, the Breaker Boys. Okay, children working in the industries of business, why business owners would want them to be in the business or industry. Okay, why would they want children working so bad? Also, you can talk about the Keating-Owens Act, how that was a good idea, it was a good start, but it didn't last too long. Right? Yeah. Do you have an IH, Andrew?
Yeah.
3. Nice, man, nice. Those are worth some cheddar cheese, you know that. All right, are we good? Ready to go over it? Okay, so describe how child labor changed in America during the Progressive Era. So throughout the industrial age, okay, in the United States, why would business owners, big business giants, these industrial giants, these robber barons, why do you think they would want children in the workplace? What's the reasons for that?
They don't pay as much.
They don't have to pay them as much, right? Good job. What else? Haley? Yeah, it's easy to tell them and boss them around what to do. Okay, do you think a child's really going to talk back to their supervisor or their manager? Not really. If they did, they got smacked one pretty good. or they got fired, which when they go home, their parents are really going to beat them up for that. What do you mean you lost your job? Yeah, we need to provide for the family here. This is why we had 10 kids. So you guys can go out and work and make some money, put food on the table, right? So these big business owners thought, you know what? This is a great way to have some sort of labor. They can do monotonous jobs that you really don't have to think about too much. Okay, that would really drive an adult to go crazy if you continue to do this over and over and over again. You can manipulate them pretty well to a point where they won't really talk back. Okay, they won't try to stress out their opinion on the matter, or maybe even just stop working, or form unions, form organizations to break the mold of this industrial lifestyle. Why else? Why else? So less pay, you said, right? Okay, you don't have to pay them near as much.
Their hands are smaller, so
Got tiny hands, small hands. Yeah, exactly. So they're small. Okay, they can fit in tight spots. When a mechanism or a machine breaks down, they can reach inside, try to fix it, and get the industry back up and running. So yeah, they can fit in tight spots, tight places to try to fix these mechanisms, fix these inventions from breaking down. And hopefully they don't lose an arm in the process, right? Yeah. What about the breaker boys? So we talked about the breaker boys yesterday. What was their job? Go ahead, Chris. Yeah, so they're so it almost looked like a stadium seats, right? And they sit pretty much backwards on it. And, after a long period of time sitting in the stadium, your butt starts to hurt. Okay, but this is a 2x4. Okay, back in the olden days on the breakers, okay, these kids would sort through this shale, sort through these other materials and coal to try to pick out some of these undesirable materials, throw them out, make sure that the coal is just going down the chute. A lot of times these kids, because they're working 12, 14 hours a day, would maybe fall in the chute. And when they get rolling down to the bottom, there's no way of stopping all these minerals from coming down, and coal and slate and slabs of rock from pounding and killing them. All right, so that happened often. Okay, what if they stopped working? What happened? Well, they stopped working. Who was behind them with a broom or a 2x4 to keep them working? Angel? Yeah, their boss or supervisor. There's a guy behind them the whole time. Whenever they stop, just boom, smack them in the back, get back to work. Okay, we also talked about their fingers getting lopped off or cut, and to the point where their hands were mangled by the time they're done with their daily job. They do this 7 days a week. Okay, there's no stopping. Right? There's no stopping. It was a constant, monotonous job that really drove a lot of kids crazy. To the point where yesterday, that primary source, that man who was talking about his time in the breakers, he was like, I couldn't believe what I went through. He said it was hell. Okay. And oftentimes kids would die in these situations. But he said that was a better place to work than even underground, inside the mine. Okay. Because inside the mine, there's a lot more dangers with little to no air to breathe. Okay. It was always wet, humid down there. Okay. And to the point where a lot of these people died of black lung, breathing in the dust, debris that was floating in the air from dynamite exploding. Okay, and other sort of things. The rail cars riding down the rails. Okay, they're very, very heavy to a point where they're 1,000 pounds plus. Okay, so if you got in the way, you're done for. You're done for. All right, is there any questions on the breaker boys and child labor? So what happened then? What happened? How did we see a change? So what was the Keating-Owens Act? What was that? What, Alyssa? Banned child labor. What year? 1916. Yep, good job. So the Keating-Owens Act banned child labor. But did that last? No, why not? Yeah, but why? They needed them more, right? World War I was kickstarting here. The United States was getting involved. Okay, needed them in the work areas. Needed to provide for the war. Okay, good. Also, because these industrial giants, these business owners, do you think they had a say in what goes on in politics, Rooster? The business owners.
Oh, I mean, it was.
Yeah, so there's like, you know what? These politicians, these political officials, we're going to pay them off, right? We're going to give them money to a point where they're going to just pass whatever we say and whatever we want. So yeah, these industrial giants really control what goes on in American society. Okay, and that's kind of how we got child labor back. Right? So then eventually, what finally pushed for the end of child labor in these harsh conditions? Haley? Yeah, Great Depression, right? 1938, we finally see public schools education being pushed more onto the children. Okay, they no longer do they have to work 12 to 14-hour days in the coal mines. They can finally go to school, get an education. All right, we need these children gaining an education and push our country in the future. All right, to try to advance it rather than working these monotonous jobs and positions. All right. Oh, who was one famous progressive that pushed for child labor to end? Angel, go ahead. Florence Kelly. Yep, good job. We talked a lot about her during the progressive era for women and their opportunities. Same thing with children. All right, that's it. That's it. There's a long one there for you. So you can include all those aspects within the child labor, how it changed during the progressive era. Good. All right, today, African Americans during the progressive era. Won't take too long, I promise, and I'll get you working on the activity. All right, so progressive African Americans. So we know after the Civil War, Reconstruction, right, still a lot of turmoil, a lot of problems, conflict in the South, right, especially trying to let these African Americans gain access to voting and having a say in government. I'll share a literacy test tomorrow with you, what some of these people had to go through. Maybe Monday I'll do it. Just remind me Monday, okay? Kevin, you got that? All right. Yeah, Monday I'll put that out, and you guys can try to solve this literacy test. And I'll show some Harvard students trying to get it done, which is impossible. So if you guys can get it done and answer your questions, I'd be surprised. But we'll see. So many African Americans banned from voting. Okay, Jim Crow laws in the South. Okay, separate but equal when we get to Plessy versus Ferguson. We'll talk about this here soon. Okay, this pushed for many African Americans to move north, gain more opportunities. Okay, especially with industrialization, how they can shift their role in society to maybe gain the opportunity in the workplace, maybe have the opportunity in education. Hopefully, have a say in government. Have a say in government. So with the Jim Crow laws, many of these African Americans were greeted at the voting booths when they were freed as slaves, right? And to the point where they're beaten. Okay, there's set regulations on voting for African Americans that they needed to have. They needed to have to pass this literacy test, and if they did, which no one really ever did, they were met by a mob right outside the voting booth. So it was really hard for African Americans to find their place in society, especially in the South. And this is where we see the Great Migration, right? And with that, this caused a lot of overcrowding in cities. When we get to the 1920s, we're going to talk about the Harlem Renaissance, okay, and how this was a new cultural shift for African Americans in society. Our music, artwork will be created. Okay, Louis Armstrong and Langston Hughes. Okay. Duke Ellington. You guys that watch Big Mouth, he's on there, right? Duke Ellington's Ghost. Yeah. We're not going to talk about that anymore in here, but Duke Ellington. Yeah, the Piano Man. All right. Okay. So Plessy versus Ferguson really pushed this separate but equal, okay, this segregation throughout the United States. Not only in the South, we still see a lot of problems and turmoil in the North with this as well. What's up, Angel? Go back. So I'm moving too fast. Holy moly. Okay, sorry about that. Good. All right. So Plessy versus Ferguson. Does anybody know this court case here? Anybody? You talked about this last year at all, Mr. Anninger? All right. So when we get to freedom government, if you ever take that class, we'll talk about this court case a lot. Okay. This was almost the same thing as the Rosa Parks incident. You know the Rosa Parks incident? What moved to the back of the bus? Okay. Similar scenario. Okay. Homer Plessy, an African American, on the rail cars. in the South. Okay, he was. Let me put this on here. He was trying to get to one place to another, and he had enough money, which at that time was very hard for African Americans to gain, the opportunities to ride in a rail car and have transportation, because let's face it, they didn't have the opportunity jobs. Okay, they didn't have the right to education to try to maybe utilize and gain access to more societal advantages. Okay, so Homer Plessy had the money, he bought a ticket to transfer. I think he was going to New Orleans, I believe. Don't quote me on that one. But he jumps on the rail car, he pays for his ticket, and he sits down. And Homer Plessy was an African American that kind of looked white in a way. Okay, so he was very light complexion. So he thought, I can pull a fast one on these rail car owners here, and he did. Okay, he was sitting in the front seat, and it was only to the point where he said, "I'm an African American." He was actually talking to a person that was sitting by, and here comes the train conductor, I guess you could say. He's like, "Hey, move back. What are you doing here? You can't be sitting in the front of the rail car." And he goes, "Well, there's no one around. Okay, there's no one really here that is going to take the seat. There's seats open, so why can't I just sit here?" He's like, "Nope, get in the back. African Americans in the back." So they used other words then, but I won't say that. So he said, "Get in the back," and he refused to do so. He got arrested, and they actually sided with the transportation here. Okay, they actually sided with Ferguson and said, "Listen, we're getting in the back of the bus. We're going to have to create a separate but equal mentality here in the United States, in the South and even in the North." So restaurants, education, schools, okay, transportation, libraries, okay, things like that were all separate. Okay, African Americans had their own school, had their own opportunity restaurant, but it's separate. Okay, a lot of times they didn't get the funding either from many of these other states. Okay, it all went towards the white school districts or the white libraries or the white transportation systems. Okay, so a lot of times these African Americans really got the leftovers, if per se. Okay, whatever was left to really fund for these types of public services for the people. All right, but this really didn't do any justice for African Americans. This court case, it actually set things back, and looked like this was going to be an uphill battle from here on out. Okay, to try to gain equality in the United States and push for progressive movements for African Americans. Okay, with this court case alone, this just showed how segregated the United States was, and we still see types of actions and violence today over the same issues. Okay. All right, so we need some progressives, right? We need some people to move African Americans in the right direction. And we see B Du Bois and Booker T. Washington. All right, I'll talk about Booker T. Washington first. Booker T. Washington was he was really the first of his kind. He was a person that actually he embraced segregation. He goes, you know what? If they're going to try to separate us in society, we're going to act on that. We're going to accept it to a point where we're going to try to push this culture in the right direction. Okay, we're going to try to make sure that we have these equal opportunities, but we're going to embrace segregation. If that's the way the white culture wants it, that's what they're going to get. Okay, that's what they're going to get. So Booker T. Washington thought, well, we need to try to gain jobs in the workplace, trades. Okay, if African Americans can hold the same job status and job titles as other whites and work in the same workplace, eventually we can bridge that gap and form equality. Does that make sense, guys? Yeah, so if they're working the same job, if they're working side by side with a white person in the industries, in the factories, in the coal mines, then eventually we'll see this equality merge with people of different culture, different races working together. And W.E.B. Du Bois actually said we need to end segregation. Okay, we need to try to gain educational opportunities for African Americans so that they can have conversations about politics, about the economy, right, about social unrest in the United States. Okay, we need to try to reason and use rationale to discuss certain topics with white culture. Okay, so when you think about it, W.E.B. Du Bois is more of an educational standpoint. Okay, he wants opportunities. He wants to end segregation. And then Booker T. Washington, he's embracing segregation. He's like, you know what? If that's the way they want it, separate but equal, that's the way we'll have it. Okay, and he's saying pretty much that we should have right to the workplace. Okay? So working, okay, opportunities in the workplace, Booker T. Washington, opportunities in education, B Du Bois. Okay. Oh, I have a slide here. Sorry. So this is pretty much what I was saying with B Du Bois, having the right to an education, having that equal opportunity to learn in the same school districts, okay, in the same universities, same colleges. B Du Bois was the first African American in the United States that had a doctorate. Okay, so he thought as long as we can communicate with whites and we can have rational thinking and we talk about politics, the economy, and social unrest, and have these discussions, this will try to bridge that gap of the segregation in the U.S. Okay, we'll have the similar opportunities as whites, and eventually these problems and turmoil will end. But even today, 100 years after the fact, we still have these issues on race within our culture and in the United States. I like to say things are getting better, but sometimes we need a reality check with that. So education, B Du Bois. As long as you remember there's education with B Du Bois, you're good to go. Okay, you're good to go. So Booker T. Washington, I already talked about him. Skills, workplace, okay, working in these vocational centers, okay, working in the industries, the factories, in the mines. Okay, again, Booker T. Washington said we should try to, if they want to have separate but equal and segregation, we'll embrace that. We will try to build off of that and maybe end the segregation by working in the same institutions, working in the same industrial centers and the factories together. If you're working side by side with a person from a different race, eventually you'll become friends. You need to get the job done, right? And you need to work together. Okay, you need to build relationships in the workplace. Some of the nicest people I ever met were Mexican Americans from when I worked at Monster's Potatoes, helping stack potatoes on skids. Okay, and I thought that was pretty cool. I made pretty good friends with them. They're really nice people. The only reason they want me on their team was because I was fast enough to move the stuff like the skids over for them to load up the pallets. Okay, with potatoes. It was pretty cool. My brother and all of my other buddies were just like, "What? How can you go with them? Because you're faster. You get the job done. You guys just sit around while we're still working." Like, yeah, because they work pretty quick. They work fast. They like to get the job done, and then they can just relax, right? So I thought that was kind of funny. But yeah, very great people, and that kind of builds off of his idea of working in the workplace and building these bonds and relationships with people of different cultures and different races. All right. Niagara Movement. I'm going to skip that, guys. Okay, this is just B Du Bois and Booker T. Washington fighting for their opportunities in the workplace and in education. I already talked about that. Last one here, guys. NAACP. Okay, this formation, this group, this organization that really built to try to fight for opportunities for African Americans moving forward. Still around today. Okay, still around today. So Booker T. Washington and Du Bois pushed for this organization, and they're trying to strive for equal opportunities in the workplace, education, okay, try to end these Jim Crow laws in the South, these lynch mobs that would find African Americans and really prove an example in communities, not only in the South, but the North. Okay, when they lynch someone, they pretty much just kill them and brutalize and beat them in the town centers, and showed them as an example, burning crosses in people's yards. Formation of the KKK. All right, the NAACP was an organization to try to fight against these hardships, okay, fight against some of these problems that emerged, not only in the South, but in the North, the United States. Okay, you got to realize Jim Crow laws, many African Americans moving north, okay, many white nativists are like, you know what, they're trying to take our jobs. Okay, these African Americans are trying to eliminate our opportunities in society as they're moving into our areas. And it was a cultural shift, a cultural barrier for many people to accept. So this is where we see a lot of hatred and a lot of groups forming against one another. But the NAACP was a peaceful movement, peaceful organization that tried to strive for the betterment of African Americans in American culture. All right. Is there any questions on that, guys? Progressive African Americans. So not only did we talk about women, we talked about children, now African Americans striving for betterment in society. Okay. All right, we got a video for you. You need time to copy that down, or are you good? 1 second? Okay. All right, just let me know when you're ready. Good? Okay, okay. We're still good. Yep. This real quick. Yeah, it's pretty good. All right. I stopped recording because the video.